Hi, I'm Colin, and this is Sci-Fi Deep Dive. So lately we've been discussing the Clone Wars a lot, in particular the end of the Clone Wars. And one thing that's come up a lot in conversation is the Droid Shutdown. This order is one of the most final moments of the Clone Wars, and we don't see it on screen. So what did it actually look like? But real quick, before we get into that, if you enjoy what you see here today, head down below and hit the subscribe button. I try to upload at least twice a week, covering everything from Star Wars to Fallout to Halo. So the Droid Shutdown order is arguably the final moment of the Clone Wars. And when we see the order go out in Revenge of the Sith, we don't actually see the result of the order on screen. After killing the Separatist leadership, upon order from Emperor Palpatine, Darth Vader sends out the Shutdown order, ordering all droid forces of the Confederacy of Independent Systems to shut down immediately. Across the galaxy, the droid forces of the Confederacy of Independent Systems simultaneously shut down. With the droid armies ceasing to function, the Clone Wars essentially ends right there. Now, while we don't see this on screen, we do see it in several books. Most notably, Rogue One Catalyst. So there will be minor non-character related spoilers for one specific scene in the middle of the book that is a little inconsequential. So if you're planning on reading it and really want to be completely spoiler-free, maybe click off now, but they're nothing major, don't worry. So in the book, we see several characters caught in a battle right at the very end of the war. The droid armies are closing in on them, and it looks like they're about to be, well, killed. The fighting of the Clone Wars has finally found their world at the very last moments of the war, and they are none the wiser to the events going on elsewhere in the galaxy. These events, by the way, being Order 66 and the declaration of a new order, the foundation of the Empire. However, mid-fighting, all of the droids stop moving and simply slouch over. A moment of heightened tension and combat and conflict was abruptly cut short when the droid armies simply stopped functioning. It must have looked fairly similar to the droids shutting down after the destruction of the droid control ship during the Battle of Naboo. This, however, would be on a much larger scale. There is an argument, however, that the droid shutdown wasn't the actual end of the Clone Wars. There were forces fighting for the Separatists that weren't droids. A good example of this would be the Battle of Umbara, where the main combatants for the Republic weren't droids but were the locals. Another example would be Mimban, by the way, but I think that was actually independent of the Clone Wars. Worlds like this would become what's known as Separatist holdouts, something that I'll cover at a later date. But that moment was the end of the war on the larger scale. That was the end of confrontation between the clone army and the droid army of the Confederacy of Independent Systems. What happened to the droids after is anyone's guess. My assumption is many of them were scrapped. We see piles of droids sitting around in the junkyards on Bracca at the start of Jedi Fallen Order. Unfortunately, we don't have any accounts of this event from the perspective of the clones, which I think would be fascinating. I would love to hear stories of clones locked in combat when their enemy simply stops. But still, it's nice to get the story of that moment from the perspective of someone on the battlefield, even if it's not clones. I actually really like this moment in Star Wars history. It is a really finite moment that you can point to and say that's the end of the war. And it's a very dramatic end of the war, too. Not an armistice, not a surrender, but an entire army simply shutting down. A very immediate conclusion to the conflict felt universally across the galaxy. But those are just my thoughts on the droid shutdown. Tell me what you think about the shutdown of the droid army. Do you think it's a nice, punctual end of the war, or would you have preferred something like a treaty, something more formal? And if you enjoyed what you saw here today, or you just want more sci-fi discussions, head down below, hit the subscribe button and the bell icon so you get notified when I upload new videos. So for Sci-Fi Deep Dive, I'm Colin, and I will see you next time.